and so whatnot afterwards. All right. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to discern the sayings and understanding, to receive instruction in wise behavior, righteousness, justice, and integrity, to give prudence to the naive, to the youth knowledge and discretion. A wise person will hear and increase in learning, and a wise person of understanding will acquire wise counsel. Go and highlight that if I can. There it goes. To understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. And since we're starting a new season, it's important to talk about this. That this is um, a way to start, and this is the beginning of knowledge. And the fools despise wisdom and instruction. So the notion here is that we have not a unhealthy fear. I think when it comes to our modern culture, we are relatively obsessed with what I would call an unhealthy fear. In other words, we fear things because we replace where our fear should be, and our fear should be in God alone. It's reserved for that. We know in other scripture that God is a jealous God. What is he jealous of? He's jealous when you fear other things, when you put other things above him, when you think that there are things that are somehow worse. And it's not just in our nature to default to that because of what's visible in front of us, this kind of thing. But it's also something where we have a culture that is utterly and completely obsessed with it. Well, right here at verse 7, we're seeing that that is not appropriate, first of all. Second of all, we're seeing that if we give into that, we are, in fact, embracing our stupidity. So if you are there watching the news every single day, you are embracing your stupidity because news is based almost at this point entirely on feeding on fear. They are literally, in my mind, demons feeding on your fear. And they have been having a frenzy lately. And so this year, what I'm going to be challenging people with is to turn it off. Get into Proverbs, get into the Word, figure out where we should have our fear, where we should have our concern, where we should have our attention. It's here. It's not in things that are promoting fear. That kind of rhymed that I didn't intend it to, but nonetheless, here we go. So anyway, I wanted to give that preference. We'll be talking more about that, trust me. But because we're going to be welcoming some new folks in, I just wanted to bring that up before we move on. But let's go ahead and do just that. We'll move on. Verse 8. Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not ignore your mother's teaching. So again, this is important because we are seeing that both have this role. Both father and mother have the role of instruction. I just realized I should have done those in blue, not yellow, because we are why So to explain a little bit about my system of highlights here, if I can get it to work. My goodness, I am not having luck with this today. There we go. Yellow is a general highlight, and um, red is something that we will look to cross-reference with other passages, something we want to learn more about. And blue is when I see, especially in Proverbs, contrasts or things that reference each other, or we find things that are um, we are finding our character in the in betweens is what I say there. They're boundaries, but if they're related, there's a pattern of Proverbs that tends to do well if we do that kind of a highlight. And then green, green is for me. Um, Green is for me to mark things that are things to remember or take action on as I go out through my day, and reminders to myself. And because that's ultimately the primary purpose for this. I'm inviting people along for the ride here, sure, but ultimately, I am all about making sure that I am um, living this. This is actually my method of accountability here. So that's to explain those. That's just my system. You can use another system. That's absolutely fine. I've in other applications and things like that, I have various other color schemes, but that's just the way I do it in these studies. So just FYI. Let's continue on. Verse 9. For they are a graceful wreath for your head and necklaces for your neck. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. If they say, come with us, let's lie in wait for blood. Let's ambush the innocent without cause. Let's swallow them alive like Sheol, even whole like those who go down to the pit. We'll find all kinds of precious wealth. We'll fill our houses with plunder. Throw in your lot with us. We'll have all the money in one bag, or in the midst of us. Throw your lot in the midst of us. My son, do not walk on the way with them. Keep your feet from their path. This is an important distinction here. For their feet run to evil and they are quick to share blood. It is indeed useless to spread the baited net in the sight of any bird or vane. Okay. A bird or possessor of wing. Wow. Okay. So the reason I highlight from their path, this is another thing that we see a lot in Proverbs, and I think it needs to be noted that it comes up in the very first thing is you there's a very clear message of you are who you associate with. And so, do not walk on the way with them, keep your feet from their path. In other words, just you- get away from them. This is not something where you're called to hang out with people that are of ill repute, just to try and bring them along with you. It doesn't work that way. That's just not the way this works. Individually, maybe there's some hope of having, like in our modern world, like coffee with someone and having a conversation with them, that sort of thing. But from the group perspective, no, don't go there. Don't be in them. It's just not. It's not going to work. um, let's see. Let's see. They lie in wait for their own blood. They ambush their own lives. Such are the ways of everyone who makes unjust gain. It takes away the life of its possessors. So unjust gain takes away life. It is not um, punishment. It's just a matter of It's not even necessary for punishment. Is that they have their own punishment involved. It's not like we even need to do anything. It's that kind of level here. Um, yeah. So let's get into warnings of wisdom here. Yes. So wisdom shouts in the street. She raises her voice in the public square, or gives her voice in this public square. Now, something to note here is that wisdom is seen as a character, and that character is female. And I I personally think that's very important, that we see that distinction. And I think that is one of the reasons I love reading Proverbs so much, is that we see this balance point, where wisdom is um, portrayed as female but not God, if that makes sense. Um, and it's a as we'll see here, there's a lot of things that are dynamic about this character of wisdom, and there is a notion of, of side to sideness, like the wisdom is been more important. But here we see right away that wisdom is shouting on the street. She's not, you know, quiet about it. She's not, you know, reserved. Wisdom shouts in the street. Pretty cool. Verse 21. At the head of noisy streets, she cries out. At the entrance of the gates in the city, she declares her sayings. How long, O naive ones, will you love simplistic thinking? And how long will scoffers delight themselves in scoffing? And fools hate knowledge. Turn to my rebuke. Behold, I will pour out my spirit on you. I will make my words known to you. Verse 24. Because I called and you refused, I stretched out my hand and no one paid attention. And you neglected all my advice and did not want my rebuke. I will also laugh at your disaster. I will mock when your dread comes. When your dread comes like a storm and your disaster comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you. They will call on me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but they will not find me, because they hated knowledge. They did not choose the fear of the Lord. They did not accept my advice. They disdainfully rejected every rebuke from me. So they shall eat of the fruit of their own way, and be filled with their own schemes. For the faithlessness of the naive will kill them, and the complacency of fools will destroy them. But whoever listens to me will live securely and will be at ease from the dread of evil. So if we listen to wisdom, we'll live securely and be at ease. That doesn't sound so hard. Doesn't sound so hard at all. Well, I tell you what, in other days we'll probably do some cross-referencing, but I didn't see anything really that stands out as something we need to take a second look at here. In other translations, this is actually, and this is the first time I've ever read the New American Standard Bible. This is my first time. I've actually never really referenced it before, so this is new for me. Pretty cool stuff. Um, yeah, yeah. So I think the other thing I wanted to say about the wisdom here is that it's funny that chapter 1 starts off with a bit of a rebuke, but at the same time, very much a call to action. Very much a, hey, this is the way this works. This is if you fools hate knowledge is in verse 22. And the yes, something else to point out here in verse 22, where it says, "How long, you naive ones, who you love simplistic thinking, how long will scoffers delight in themselves in scoffing?" Later on, Jesus to his disciples, I can picture him just kind of like rubbing the side of his temple a little bit. It's like, how long must I put up with you? I picture that in my mind of that whole like there is not an anger here. It's more of just a frustration. It's not a how dare you. It is a why aren't you getting this? What is so hard about this? This is not difficult. You know? And indeed, verse 23 says, "Turn to my rebuke." Turn to my rebuke. It's one of those things where it's very difficult for um, youths, I guess, but also for adults. It's difficult for youths because they think they know, and difficult for adults because they're sure they know. So when they're both wrong, that's a challenge. But when we see this, when we see that the wisdom is calling this out on us and saying that, all she wants is to enrich us. She doesn't need anything from us. She doesn't need any kind of like validation. She doesn't need to be popular. It's just not a thing. Later on, we'll see that she was there at the beginning of creation. It's like the world was created with wisdom in mind. So it's not just a add-on. It's more of we were added on to it. And so when we're mocking that, when we take things away from it, when we don't respect what the fear of the Lord means in our lives, when we try and replace it with other things, it's natural for us to get to the point of neglecting the advice of wisdom and not wanting that rebuke, like it says in verse 25. It's it's a shame that we don't want to be rebuked. We think we know our way. Oh yeah, I've read that before. It- that's what I'm. That's just to be full circle here. It's one of the reasons I'm doing this is I don't want to fall into a pattern of saying, "Oh no, I've read that before. I'm good." It's like many books. Very rarely do I go and reread a book, mostly because my backlog of unread books is staggering. So why do I return every single day to a book that I've already read? Well, because I need the rebuke. I need the advice. I need the counsel. I need the reminders. And I am absolutely confident that I'm not alone in this. So that's why. In any case, a couple of things going on that we'll talk about here. Um, First of all, I think I mentioned this yesterday, but I'll mention this again today since this is the first of season 7. Season 7, month 7. Started this in July of 2024. And so, amazingly, we're still going. I love it. And so, one of the things that I've decided to do is, and I generally don't know why I've not done this previously because I knew the technology existed to do this, but it will basically take the recordings here live and make them into a podcast episode. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to make this into a podcast as well. But as always, I'm always going to be encouraging people to join us live because that is where the accountability comes in, I think. And when I look up at the indicator on my screen here and I see that people are here live with me as I'm recording this, that's encouraging. And it tells me that I'm not the only one that has this need for daily wisdom and to do this. And then, of course, we see that through metrics and whatnot that people are listening, and maybe they can't join me live. That's fine. So I want to give them additional ways to do this with us. And so, but yeah, if possible, I always recommend the videos just because we're reading along the screen, making highlights like I mentioned earlier today, and that sort of thing. But at the same time, I'm going to be kind of from this point forward trying to orient the content as if you're not seeing what I'm seeing on screen, so that you can listen in the car and not have to follow along and that sort of thing. So I'm going to try and get better about that, and so that's going to be my challenge and such for this year. But uh, well, just a couple things here, real quick. I want to tell you about the C-Suite for Christ Savior Summit that's going on in Dallas on January 14th to the 16th. C-Suite for Christ is a organization that I belong to as part of their speakers bureau, and I am yeah, glad to partner with them because they have a lot of chapters all over the United States where they are trying to encourage business owners and that sort of thing. But the C-Suite for Christ Savior Summit is really more open to the public. It's not just for business owners. And so we have a lot of speakers that are there that are they're speaking on various topics that are there to enrich you and make your life better with Christ. And so I'm very much encouraging people to join me. So if you are in the Dallas area or want to get there for the 14th to the 16th, your admission is on me. I've got you covered. Just use the code winter25 WDS, sorry, WDTHURS. The link will be in the description or whatever it's called below there or wherever you see it. But also here on the screen, you'll see a QR code if you're viewing. And so that is a resource for you. So I'm looking forward to that in a couple weeks. We'll be there, obviously. I'm not speaking at this particular one, but I am going to be there, and Kevin Sorbo is going to be the keynote for that, and so I very much encourage people to be a part of that. And then, as this last little bit of time here with you, I wanted to get your feedback. I want to know what kind of things that you are looking forward to in 2025. I want to know what kind of things that you are are after. And so one of the ways you can do that is connecting with me on Facebook. My page is facebook.com/degevotions. Uh, and you can message me there or just make a comment on this video there or on YouTube, whatever. I just want to hear what kind of things you're after this year, what kind of things you are thinking about. Mostly because I think it's a great way for me to know what kind of areas I can help, what kind of things I can make additional content around to help you out with that. And so I do encourage that. So if you think something, go ahead and put it in there. Just what kind of things you're working on for this year. For me, I'm going to tell you that I have probably more focus on habits than goals this particular year. I have let a lot of things go and have been just kind of floating around. I mean, for me, 2024 was very disruptive for me in a lot of ways, and not in bad ways, but in ways that I got out of my pattern, got out of my habits. Um, it doesn't help me right now that I've moved again. It's as far as my office and where I work, physically moving that space to a new space again, even within our house, has been challenging for me because this is like, okay, I'm disrupting my safe space. I'm disrupting that all over again, and I don't want to. It's that kind of thing. So I, I, I I'm not sure how to describe this. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I am more interested in uh, getting habits back into my life than I am about goals necessarily. But I do have a few goals that I'm working towards, and not sure what's going on with my screen here. Kind of jittery. Is that what it looks like to me? I don't know. We'll see. Um, Squirrel. That's another thing, is to minimize my distractions and keep focused on things, and that's a big part of that. And so there's some goals I have with some of the coaching that I do. I have some like a count of number of people that are are being coached by me on a monthly basis, and some goals around that. I also have some goals of making my professional life more automated, I guess you could say. I shouldn't say automated. I should say delegated. That's the right word. I almost made delegate a word for this year. I almost did it. Um, for me, I think my word of the year is thrive, because I feel like the pieces are in place, and it's time to amplify that. And so, my one of my goals is to make it to the point where there is kind of a system in place where there's enough revenue coming in to justify hiring people to run sides of my business that I don't want to run, which is we're going to be talking a lot about that this year, in terms of how I see the parable of talents and how I identify within that, and realizing that I've been living in kind of one lane, and that's absolutely fine. And God would still say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." But I'm seeing that there's a potential to amplify that, and to go even deeper with that. And so it takes a team to do that. It takes me becoming a steward, not a servant. Um, Very interesting distinction we'll get more into as we go along. Oh my goodness. Let's get the little thing in my throat there. But so that's some of my things for this year. The other thing that I have as a goal is once a week, I want to get into the habit of reaching out to someone, personally, not in a video like this, but actually one on one, and having a conversation about what's going on in their lives. It's just that simple. I'm not trying to pitch anything or work with anything. I'm just trying to just reserve part of my time to just literally just pour into others on a one-on-one basis and get better about doing that. So that's a thing there. And then also, I've not been pursuing a lot of speaking opportunities, and I really need to get back into that being the forefront of what I'm doing. And so that'll be another thing that I'm doing in 2025. So yeah, there's a lot of things there, and also my health. I've let those habits very much decline, and I have stacked on about 25 pounds this last year, and so those got to go, and we'll keep going. And so that is something where I'm not putting numbers to it necessarily. It's more of like I'm focusing on the goals of sorry, on the habits. Yeah, so not necessarily, number of goals like I want to lose 25 pounds, whatever. No, I want to set up habits that I am into every day. Working out, eating properly, having a system, tracking what I'm doing every day, that sort of thing. That is my goal, is to get into better habits. And so, there's more specifics there. I never want to have goals that are just very flighty and say better or more or less. I have specific goals. I don't always share those publicly, but I do have those written down, and usually dates. Whenever I'm setting a goal, I say by this time, I want this to be this that sort of thing. And um, if there is actually, yeah, I'll probably be getting into that with folks very soon about the methods of goal settings that I've seen work and not work in my life, and then kind of sharing those. That'll be on a different video. I'm not going to do that today. Appropriate for the new year, but not appropriate for today since I've gone on for a good 30 some odd minutes here, and I want to let you go on with your day and enjoy your new year. So, very much so. Have yourself a wonderful day. I will see you again tomorrow. In the meantime, be blessed by the best, and then go be a blessing to all the rest. Love you guys, and we will see you tomorrow.